When we talk about collective healing and collective pain, we have the opportunity today in this moment to find healing in these major challenges and the major hurt that Hashem and the Jewish people in their relationship. I would like to kind of go into this to see it as a very grand scale, maybe abandonment or misalignment, and going back there and talking about it and finding ways to find connection and healing and wholeness and flow in this same relationship is so much of what our work here is. So I think the Rebbe taught us how to approach these stories with this lens, the division of how the Torah is split up and the way that it is week by week is connected with the time, very specifically connected to the time that we're in. We have an opportunity and ability to be able to tap into what's going on, the energy of this specific week. So this week is connected to the themes in Parshas Shlach. And all of these details are connected with the entire Torah because the Torah is one. Every Shabbos, we read one parsha from beginning to end with the brachas of the Torah as a community. It tells us something special about that week. The general theme of Parshas Shlach is sending of the Meraglim. It goes through the whole process of like the idea of sending them and then choosing them and then sending them out and then their whole trip in the land and their report coming back and the whole Jewish people's response to it. We know that the Torah is very exact, the most exact. So we have to be able to understand the connection, the unification of Parshas Shlach with these ideas. We're going to talk about 6 differences here between the Meraglim that were sent in Parshas Shlach, the 12 spies that were sent from Moshe as the Jewish people were in the desert to Eretz Yisrael, and the people, the sending of Meraglim that happened through Yehoshua right before they entered the land. 2 people went in, 2 messengers came in to check out the land. So we'll look at the difference between what happened then and what happened then, because this week we also read the Haftarah is that story. Number 1, Rashi says that when Hashem told Moshe to send Meraglim, he says Shlach lecha, which means send according to your das, according to what you think. I'm not commanding you to send the Meraglim, but if you feel that it is necessary, if you think it's important, then you should send the Meraglim. And this was not so with Yeshua. The Alter Rebbe actually talks about this in Likutei Torah, that Yeshua did not send according to his own will, especially after the whole mess that happened with the sending of the Meraglim, according to the thought process of Moshe, according to what Moshe thought, which was not from Hashem. Obviously, Yeshua would never just do it. He wouldn't make that mistake. So it has to be that Hashem commanded Yeshua to do that, especially Yeshua was there with Moshe. What is it like? Insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results. So Yeshua wanted different results and he wanted to make it happen. So obviously he didn't do that exact same mistake that the Jewish people paid for 40 years. That's why they were in the desert for 40 years. Let's not forget. Because of the Meraglim, the punishment of the Meraglim was to be in the desert for an additional all those years. The second difference is when Moshe sent the Meraglim, Hashem said, send anashim, which means people, men, and they will scout out the land, Eretz Canaan. The Asuru, like they'll scout out, or I think the more accurate translation is they'll tour the land, not so much scouting. And Yeshua says send messengers to really get into the details of what's going on, to really check out all the back roads and check out what's really going on behind the scenes, not just to go on a topical journey to the land. Number 3, so Moshe sent 12 Meraglim, and each of them represented the Shvatim, and Yeshua sent 2 two people, that's a big difference. And then number 4, Meraglim Moshe Nasi Yisrael Kol Nasi Bahem Rashi Bnei Yisrael Hema the Ela Shemaisam V'Gamer Ve'elu Meraglim Yehoshua Nemer Shnayim Nashim Stam V'Lay Nisparsh B'Ksav Mihayu Shnei Hana. The people that Moshe sent weren't just regular Joes that were looking for. They were on unemployment and they needed a job, right? Or they had just graduated to college and they needed something to do with themselves. These were Nasiim. These were the leaders of each tribe. They were well known. They were high respected. These were the kind of people who were honored at events or whatever. They were asked for advice for big things, right? They were very, very well known, well respected individuals who were sent through Moshe. And when spoken about Yehoshua, he sent 2 people, regular 2 people, and it's not specified who these 2 people were. No name, no accolades, no letters after their name, nothing like that. No plaques on their desk or, what is it, the corner office everybody wants to be with like 2 sides of windows? None of that. We don't know where they were working. They may have had a cubicle, maybe not. That's number 4. Number 5, the Meraglim that Moshe sent, each came. It was a very grand, dramatic event where the Bnei Yisrael knew about it. Moshe knew about it. It was a big announcement. They all came together. They didn't all go themselves in their own little entrances, like the Shvatim came to Mitzrayim, for example, so that no one would know. Obviously, Yosef knew, and he kind of took that against them. But when the Meraglim came to Eretz Canaan, they all came together, and they did make a scene. But this was not the case with the Meraglim that Yehoshua sent. He sent them clandestinely in hiding because Yehoshua didn't want the Jewish people to know that he was sending them. And then when they came back, it says Vayavayu al Yehoshua Vayisapru Vayamru al Yehoshua. Right. So when they came back, they gave the report. They visited with Yehoshua in private on some level. So the Jewish people, Bnei Israel, didn't know that these Meraglim went, and obviously the people of Canaan also didn't know, right? Because that's the idea. When you send spies, no one kind of knew about it. This woman took them in. There was a whole interesting story about that, how the 2 Meraglim were taken in and hidden in this inn, right, by this woman. Basically, the point is that many different ways it was very, very hush-hush, very, military. That's how it works. Military kind of keep things quiet. No one's supposed to know. Military secret. Versus the Meraglim that were set in Parshas Shlach. And then the 6th thing is the Meraglim Moshe went, they toured the entire length and breadth of the land. Arba Me'as Parsa, 400 Parsa, which is a certain distance. By Arba Me'as Parsas, they went across up and down 400 Parsa. That's why it took them 40 days, walk the full length of the land, full length and breadth of the land. And Meraglim Yehoshua only went to Yerichai. They were there for a very short time. They didn't even have an opportunity to tour the entire Yerichai. And they stayed with Rachav, this woman who let them in. And she actually lowered them by a rope outside the window of her house, because one of the walls of her house was part of the city walls, because this was a military spy mission. Nobody was supposed to know about it. So she basically lowered them outside her window, and they ran away. They were running away for 3 days, and then they came to Yehoshua. So that was a much shorter trip. Those are the 6 differences. One of the Meraglim, what each of the Meraglim, of what Moshe's Meraglim accomplished and what Yeshua's Meraglim accomplished is really there's one goal. What's the goal? To conquer Israel. That's the goal. And both of them were such different experiences, but and because they're both so different, they both complete each other in this quest taking over the land, which is like so mind-blowing, especially now with so much talk this week and the past couple of weeks about the legitimacy of the land of Israel in this world in 2021. It's so comforting to be able to immerse myself in these ideas of what it really means to conquer the land and know that there are different ways, there are different times, there are different people, and each one of us has something specific that we can do in this general goal of conquering and entering the land. So I just invite you to think about what that means for you as we continue learning, just this week, just today, maybe just this hour, just as we're sitting here, what that means for you conquering the land and entering and to take up the full space of the land and the gifts that Hashem continues to give us. The reason why spies need to be sent, Meraglim need to be sent, is number one, for the conquering of the land, right? So figuring out logistically how to make that happen. So like which city to start with and the strategy and from which side and what the approach would be, what kind of weapons need to be used, all of that kind of thing. That's number one. And number two is for the actual entering of the land, that the Jewish people should know and understand and appreciate the greatness of the land. Sheyidu lahem kol anyanei haaretz lesamcham b'maliyusa v'yalu b'chayfetz gadol. If we have to enter the land, we want to talk about the greatness and the amazing beauty that the land holds, and that's our job. If we go and see it, as the spies can go and see it, we can come back to tell everybody, like, you guys, this is such an incredible gift. This is so beautiful. This is so full. And to really almost set the intention for the entire people that this is amazing, and to really not hype, but honest reporting of what's going on, and honest excitement for this new venture and this new gift that we're coming in. Moshe sending the Meraglim was to really get an appreciation and an understanding and an excitement for the land, and not to figure out the strategy of how to take it on. And Yeshua's sending was really purely for the strategy of how exactly to conquer the land. When the Jewish people requested to send the Meraglim, they basically said, can you please figure out a strategy how we can enter the land? And then Moshe sends them, and he doesn't send them with a strategy. He sends them to tell us the greatness of the land. It's interesting. I'm just like imagining like an adult, like Moshe's like the parent, and then like all the Jewish people are like the children of like, no, this is what we want, and this is for whatever reason. And Moshe, in his incredible wisdom, is like, okay, I'm going to give that to you, but I'm going to give it to you for a different reason. Why did Moshe refuse to send the Meraglim for strategy? Because this is something that is so true and deep, that each of us have this awareness and this wisdom through Moshe, that Hashem, I'm going to say this slowly, and I really am trying to like absorb this reality here. The conquering of the land of Eretz Yisrael was not within the laws of nature at all. Hashem is the one who made it happen. Hashem Elokeichem hailech lefnechem. Hashem is your Hashem who walks before you. Hashem fights for you. Hashem goes before you in the presence of a fire, of a flame of fire that you can see at night, that you can follow. And then during the day, he leads you in the form of a cloud. There's no reason, there's no purpose, there's no point. It's a waste of energy. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of precious resources to yourself go and figure out how to make it happen. It's just like, whoa, okay, like cute idea, but like, this is not the point. And it's just incredible to me to see it straight out from the Chumash that Moshe is telling them over and over again. Hashem is taking care of you. Hashem is leading you. Hashem is with you. He's walking in front of you. He's represented as a fire sometimes. Sometimes he's represented as a cloud, but whatever it is, he's got you. What is the purpose of the Meraglim? Moshe sent them to tour the land, to travel it, to be on some sort of beautiful tour, literally, a vacation, to see the land, l'rais as taiva aretz, to see the good of the land, the beauty of the land, everything that it has to offer. So, this specific shluchas was supposed to be completed through the Meraglim. They were supposed to come back and say all these great, beautiful things about the land and what they saw and how amazing and how strong and how beautiful and how one of a kind and exceptional this land is. And if they wouldn't have ruined it or spoiled it with their additional statement that we are not going to, according to nature, be able to go up there and take it on. They have a beautiful, beginning report, and then they should have stopped, but they didn't. They continued. They said, between me and you, it's not possible for us to go up there. This is the last part of our statement, that it's not going to happen. Listen, bro, this is a no-go. And if they would have stopped right before that spoiling sentence, then immediately at that point, the Jewish people would have been able to go up, enter the land with b'simcha u'b'chayfetz gadol, with joy and great excitement and enthusiasm into this land. The conquering of the land through Yehoshua was not at the high level that the conquering of the land with Moshe would have been. The conquering of Moshe, it just would have happened immediately. But with Yehoshua, they needed some sort of working within nature. They needed some sort of intelligence. They needed some sort of strategy, because it couldn't be at the high level of miracle that Moshe's Meraglim, that entering of the land through Moshe would have happened. So they had to basically enter this experience sending Meraglim, sending intelligence, just like any other old nation that wanted to conquer another land. And then it's interesting because the Rebbe says in the parentheses here that he sent technically according to Tava, according to nature, but it was more like me'enu dogma. It was like a little pretend practice, because really this entering of the land and Yerichite was completely miraculous. Moshe sent Meraglim just because that was requested of him. The Jewish people requested that Moshe send Meraglim so that they can go ahead of them and help with the strategy of taking over the land. And Moshe basically, in good faith, with the hope that the Meraglim would come back with a straight and enthusiastic response, he sent them and made it happen. But the question is there a purpose or reason to Hashem is giving us a gift? What's the purpose to check out and make sure it's really good? There was no really reason for Hashem, from Hashem's perspective, to send the land, because this is beautiful. This is a great. Ani amarti lahem shehiteva. I already told them that this is a good land. So what's the purpose of going and checking it out? But Moshe felt like the Jewish people had this need to hear from a person, to hear the greatness of the land from flesh and blood, from somebody who actually went and saw it and came back with a positive result, and not just rely on Hashem's saying that it was good. That's why Moshe had to send 12 Shvatim. The reason why Moshe had to send 12 Shvatim, because there had to be representation from each and every shevet, a connection, a groundingness from each shevet to say, actually, guys, this is amazing. Let's do it. And they needed their own eyes on the land. So because the Jewish people are divided into 12 Shvatim, each and every shevet needed their own leadership, their own nasi, to go and look at the entire land and the entire greatness. And through this, they will be very excited, very thrilled, and go up to the land. And that's why there were 12 and not 2. It wasn't like each Nasi went to his own specific place of the land. They all went all together to give this strength and this validation and reassurance to the Jewish people that this is a beautiful land as a whole. And obviously, because of that, that's why it had to be so out in the open. And that's why it had to be on the headlines, because that was the purpose for them to go. But the Meraglim of Yehoshua weren't going to see the goodness of the land. They came to actually wage war in a natural form. So that's why you need to have intelligence going ahead to figure out what's going on. Why were there just 2 Meraglim to go check out the land? Obviously, because you don't need a whole crew of guys coming and making the local people suspicious. You don't need the political or halachic or cultural leaders to go and spy the land. You need to have the military leadership go and check it out. You need to have the people who that's their field of expertise. You don't need people who are popular or who are well known or who are leaders in their field. You need somebody who's an expert in military strategy. That's why they're going. So there's always like check back, like why are they going? And then they heard, and then they went to this inn of Rachav. That's where she was the one who saved them and helped them escape. She told them, I see that Hashem has already given this land to you. Okay. All the people who live here are afraid of you. They're going to run away. No one's going to come with breath, with strength, with space to stand up against you. So when they came back to Yeshua, what did they say? Nasan Hashem biyadenu es kol haaretz v'gam haaretz b'pneinu. Hashem has already given us this land in our hands. Basically, the deal's in the bag, and everything that's against us, we have nothing. They have already disintegrated and dissipated and are not a threat. And that was the completion of their shlachos. So much about these past couple of weeks has come up in this sikha, like just reminding us, like first of all, what's the intention for what we do in general? It's not about what we do. It's about the intention, right? The intention is to receive, to conquer, to settle, to take up the space of the gifts that Hashem has given us. That's the point. And many times we can get stuck because we're like, well, how is that going to happen? How are we going to be able to conquer that? How are we going to take up that space? Let's see if we can figure it out. We're so busy trying to figure out how, or at least I am so busy trying to figure out how to make it happen, how to strategize, how to show up fully in the gifts that Hashem is giving me. So I can't enjoy the ride, right? The Rebbe says so clearly, Meraglim were just going to go on a tour of the land on 40 days of epic beauty and taking in the amazing light that's in front of them. And what happened? They said, yeah, it was great. We loved it, but it's not happening. It's just not going to happen. We can't do it. We don't have the resources. We don't have the time. We don't have the support. We have way too much against us. It's just not happening. So that was not what they were asked to do. They were asked to express thanks and beauty of what Hashem was bringing to the table and what Hashem was giving us. And in the past couple weeks, I've been thinking about this a lot because this whole what's been going on in Israel has and the world has really made me think about what the land means to me and what Hashem's gifts that he's giving me means to me. And where am I sabotaging that flow? Where am I stopping it? Where am I being like, I'll figure out how to get it, or like, I'll like, whatever it is, or be extra defensive and not fully step into the full breadth and width of this incredible gift. So that's one aspect of it. There's obviously a bunch more. Let me open it up. If anybody wants to share something.
I was just thinking, I mean, one question I have, meaning when I share this, it's like, this is on the premise that it's ideal to send the right kind of Meraglim, meaning that the ideal is to go and check out our land, but in the way that they were supposed to. You're like, is the ideal to send the Meraglim, but do it in the way that Moshe had intended? Or is the ideal to trust Hashem so much that we don't even need Meraglim?
Could I respond? Because I was just thinking, so first of all, what comes to me is that Hashem created a paradigm, right? A duality in life. And I think we get caught up in the perfection, right? Like what would be the perfect choice? Who would be the perfect people? And I think it's so important to see that the free choice is all wrapped up in that paradigm that on the one hand, Hashem already said, you have it, it's in the bag. And on the other hand, you have this human aspect of the Meraglim who were coming from the desert where they had everything. And then they saw that we're going to have to work the land. And they're like, no, I don't know. I'm not used to that. I don't know how to do that. So there was all this thought about like, I don't know, so that's normal. That's the normal paradigm that Hashem created, the struggle within us. So I think Hashem is really pleased with us in a sense, like this had to happen. That's what I learned about this whole story, that it was part of the growth of us to see that there's both happening. We have to receive from Hashem what's already ours and know what is ours. And also be very compassionate toward ourselves when we don't, and we struggle and we force it and we don't see it so obviously. The healing was with Yeshua, that he took the lesson the first time because he was one of them. And then he was able to say, look, we're going to play the game. We're going to play the game of like making it look like we're going to have an army and we're going to do this, but we already know like Hashem's got this. He kind of integrated, I guess that was the DOS, like he integrated the paradigm.
Yeah, that's actually fascinating. And I guess I want to add two things. You mentioned the DOS, and Moshe always had the DOS because Hashem specifically said it's according to your DOS. Moshe always had it, but somehow it got lost in some way, and the Meraglim didn't fully have the DOS. The Bnei Israel didn't fully have the DOS, and they needed the process of all this cleansing and all this pain to kind of get to that DOS. And the Rebbe says here that the two times the Meraglim were sent, they had the same goal, and each of them accomplished something else towards that goal. I'm just getting chills as I'm saying it. The 12 Meraglim from Moshe did what they were supposed to do to make the kivush happen, to make it happen. And the Meraglim of Yehoshua did what they were supposed to do to make it happen. And we need both of them. And it's so clear here that they're just so side by side with so much love and so much space and so much appreciation for everything that went into that to make it happen. So that's kind of what came up for me like immediately. First of all, when
that's huge, because that means we don't blame another Jew. Like we don't say, oh, if it weren't for you not keeping Shabbos, we would be in Geula already. Like, it's you're holding us back. You're the one. And really what you're saying here is that's not the case at all.
Yeah, I mean, definitely Hashem is running this world. So there's no mistakes and there's no one person holding it back. Everyone is exactly where they need to be. It seems like, so the Meraglim, the first one, their job was to go and just trust Hashem and to go and to see like the beauty and everything. And it's like in our process, this is just what I'm thinking, like wherever we're at, there's times that it's up, times that it's down, times we don't know, times we do know, like, there's life's constantly up and down. It's a roller coaster. It never stays the same. So I guess what's coming up for me is to constantly relate to life in the way, the ideal spy, like constantly being like, look at it and to notice what's coming up and notice where we're at, but with trust and with the eyes of the perspective that for sure this is good, for sure there's a reason. And it's like, oh, okay, Hashem made me sick this week. Okay, so I'm gonna have to sit around and relax, fine. What's the beauty in this? I guess Hashem wants me to spend even more time with myself and like even more chill, like, fine. Okay. Like there's a good reason for this. I could just trust that. And my job is to not like doubt it, not over strategize, not over fix it, to just notice. So that's what came up for me. But then my question is like, well, there's also space for Yehoshua's Meraglim and his way of how he did it in a more natural way, where there was a strategy. Is the Rebbe telling us that there is time where we have to be strategic and more play by like the rules of nature? Because I would think that the ideal is really the first way, which is what I keep practicing, which is like go with the flow, just trust. I just have to show up every day and just, if Hashem needs me for something, he'll show me. I don't need to have it figured out, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm trying to figure out.
As far as I understand, it's 100% both. And that's what's so crazy. Like, there's so much space and so much appreciation and so much compassion for both. And then the Rebbe in the end of the Sikha talks about, I don't know, about there are basically two levels of serving Hashem. There's unity and then there's differentiation. Okay, that's two levels of Hashem. There's like Tara Echad, and then there's everything separated and differentiated in this world. Okay, Tara, he Tara Achas, ki Tara because Tara represents the oneness, and mitzvahs represent the differentiation. Because mitzvahs represent 613 mitzvahs, which is a lot of different things going on. Mitzvahs represent like mitzvahs aseh and mitzvahs la'aseh aseh, and they also represent the different parts of our body. So each part of our body is its own part. Each cell, each body part is its own, but it stands in the greater picture, and it's all needed for the greater good. So that's like a tiny little part. There's obviously a bunch more that the Rebbe goes into here about that, but definitely both. The question is how.
I don't know. That's confusing for me because honestly, like, I don't live by strategy anymore. Like, I don't even know how to do, like, strategy for me at this point is like, gives me anxiety if I have to do it, because I've stepped out of that so much that it's like, I can't live with dichotomy anymore. Like, it's like, what?
Yeah, I just want to read to you what the strategy was. It was a joke. Let me just make that very clear.
Okay, but meanwhile, I want to say another thing. Please. I wonder, and this is just me thinking out loud, like, if the Meraglim Moshe would have passed the test and would have gone in and do it in the way that that the intention, which was, even if things don't make sense, and even if things are not logical, and even if things seem bad, but to go with this lens of, if Hashem is promising, then it's 100% good, 1,000% good, everything will work out. How can we trust this? Even if things don't make sense, just like come with this Hashem lens of knowing Hashem's unconditionally love and knowing like there's nothing to doubt. Then maybe Yehoshua wouldn't have had to do the strategy, because that elevated space would have, like, they were so connected to Hashem that it would have happened in a more above natural way. But because they weren't able to be in that space and they doubted and they were in fear, it was like they went the lower level, which was strategy. I don't know. I'm totally making this up. I'm just trying to make sense of it. My question is more like, what is the ideal?
Yeah, it's interesting because what kept on coming up was like the intention. All of this, like all of them wrong, like what's the intention for them going? Why are they going? What's the purpose? What are they trying to accomplish? So Moshe is like, I want you to be hyped up. I want you to be so excited about this land. Yeshua is like, okay, we need to work within nature. And he was on the same page with the two people. But everything else that happened around that was just a distraction from the intention. That's all. And maybe Hashem is thanking us for like the distraction and for being human. And being like, this is part of the process. Like, we need you. We need you to be in this space, as painful and as dark and as confusing as like, and as unsettling. This is part of the process. And you expressed that with your question, Ahama, a few times. You expressed that frustration so well. like the frustration that we're all feeling. And it doesn't matter what any of us say. It's our job to, or my job, to like hold space for that question.
I feel like Hashem has put me in this waiting room, and whenever I get a chance to leave it, which I feel very impatient in it, but whenever I get a chance to leave it, I go like, no, like the way you spoke, like it's too stressful, and like it's not for me. But when I'm in this waiting room, I'm also like, I'm suffocated. I need to do something, like I need to produce. Like, it's not that what Hashem is for me. So I'm living this paradox, but still cannot find my.
I think we're living that whole Meraglim thing again. We're living like, no, we want to stay in this garbage. We want to stay in the dry desert. We don't want to enter the land that has so much for us. Like we just want to stay in this energy. And we're in this space right here because we want to push past that and live in Gula, like live in that reality that's available to us right now. And it takes so much like humility and vulnerability and risk to step into that, and faith, and also a sense of self and a sense of self-respect and understanding of self, to be able to be like, no, this is what I need. Like I need to step into this. And I want to celebrate all of us here that were like stepping into that in a way of like the Meraglim of Moshe and the Meraglim of Yehoshua, each in our own way within each moment, stepping into that fully and being like, no, I'm not going back to the dry chaos of running around for no reason. I'm just not doing it. I'm going to find a new way. I'm going to find a healthy way. I'm going to find an integrated, flowing, healed, balanced way that's full of abundance. And we could leave like the waiting room from a full place, from a place of self-actualization, and not from a place of like, oh my gosh, I need to get out of here. I can't breathe. Like, no, I can breathe. I have control. I have everything I need. I'm safe. And now I'm ready to turn the knob and walk to the next thing. Like that's how
the land is, right? Not.
And I want all of us to be able to have that experience of stepping out in that way. So I want to share that with all of you.
Thank you. I want to, no matter what, where we are, no matter who we're with or not with, or no matter what's going on, we're a whole world within us. And like, that takes so much work. And that kind of self-actualization only comes with the loneliness, with the uncertainty, with the doubts, with that place of like insecurity, because then it's like, am I able to validate and hold space for that for myself, and not like run and fix that outside of myself? Because that's what brings us to completion.
I think we have this tendency to kind of talk down on like trying to find validation from outside of us. And today I got such validation because basically the Meraglim went to Eretz Yisrael to get external validation on the greatness of the land. And that was part of the process. That was needed. There's a time and place for external validation. There's a time for not having your own feelings of feeling like you matter. I guess I have such a difficult relationship with that within myself, of like all the times that I was like hustling for value from other people or validation or wanting to be seen and all that, and not giving that to myself. And now realizing that part that needs to be there. And that's part of my process. And that's part of our communal process as a Jewish people of entering the land, and obviously the global community. And that was such a key part of the Meraglim. So of course we needed it. And of course we still need it on some level, because that is how we get to where that's part of the process. And I guess so much of like what I'm trying to do now is just celebrate all of those things that we literally vilified as being a bad thing.
Oh my gosh, honey. This is so beyond. I feel like I'm in like a retreat, a therapy retreat. This is like so amazing for me. So many feelings came up for me last week, and one of them was like loneliness and like this longing, like needing connection and like needing just like more in my life. And
I was in so much resistance and so much pain because I didn't realize that subconsciously I was shaming myself. Like, God forbid, like, oh my gosh, you're so needy and you're so desperate and like you're lonely, so you need other people and da 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 da. Like, I didn't even realize, and I just felt so much resistance and so blocked and so like, I didn't know. And then I had this breakthrough on Sunday when I was like, what is this? Like, I feel so heavy. And then Hashem showed me, because I got triggered because I felt like I needed someone, and then they reacted. And then I realized, thank you, Hashem. This is what is going on. I'm feeling so much shame that I feel these feelings, and like how, and then I felt such freedom, because then I realized, welcome to being human. Like, why do I feel shame about having these needs? Because I was raised that being needy and needing a hug, needing attention, needing support, like it's a weakness, and it's so gullus. And I'm like, how beautiful. Like, of course I need love. Of course I need connection. Of course I have needs. Of course I need validation. Of course, when I feel lonely, I want to connect. Of course, like, and as soon as I like let go of the shame and I validated that, I was like, oh my gosh, like this huge boulder got off of me, because I was like, maybe it will happen, maybe it won't. That's up to Hashem. But one thing I know, like, I absolutely have these feelings, and how beautiful that I'm like opening that channel, because that's the truth. Like, all the separation between people is gullus. It's not the way it's supposed to be. Of course, our soul wants more. Of course, our soul knows it needs more. This is not an ideal state of living.
But also your needs is that basically there's certain levels, there's certain parts of differentiation that are needed for Mashiach to come, because we need to be fully standing into our full light, and we need to know what our needs are and get them. Like, we do need to be fully actualized. We need to have all of our needs met. That's Mashiach.
Yeah.
And we have to be aware of what that is.